Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here, and today is our Techniques Tuesday. And so you can see I have some reds and golds on my table, sort of a mustard color, more lace, and a few other little goodies kicking around here. And then I have all my little bead centers. Now, I did make a few more in the gold tones because I knew I was going to be working in these colors. So I made a few more centers for my flowers. And this is going to be a series of floral embellishment type videos. It will probably run us, I don't know, 4, maybe 6 weeks over the next few weeks. I had planned to do this later in the season, more in the spring, but let's hope we push spring on by getting started now and get these flowers sprouting. And I always like to have a stash of flowers and parts to play with when I'm working on projects. And I work in this color a lot, so there's always bits and pieces kicking around, or I'll have a bag full of scraps to use if I want to really mass make these in a hurry. But sometimes it's nice to have them ready. And when I say ready, I loosely say ready because I can never quite make up my mind to the last minute. So they're not always put together until the last minute. But yeah, it was just a way to show you again, this is a very inexpensive way to make some beautiful little gems. And you saw me do this last week, just a little scrapbook stone and some seed beads. And you've got beads that are, can be quite expensive if you were to buy them, from your favorite online places. So in doing this, I've brought to the table some velvet. It's not a real velvet. It's, like a velveteen or whatever. It's got a polyester blend in it, but it is very nice and very soft and pliable. I brought some nasty crinoline. It was from a little girl's dress. I'm guessing they must have put this in the dryer because it's quite crunchy and stiff, but it's still definitely usable. Brought some gold mesh and this mustard colored lace, which is about 2 inches wide. And I just finished taking apart a red sari, and I took apart the pants. And so the pants were made out of this polyester, horribly nasty stuff. It doesn't fray really well when you go to, or it doesn't tear well. It frays fine, but when you go to tear it, it takes the cross threads and gathers them up. So it has to be manually cut when you cut it. But this was the one piece I tore off to test, and then when I found it didn't do that, then I put this in the pile for making flowers. But now I know, and then I made notes on my fabric not to tear it because it does ruin the fabric, the threads going in the other direction. And this is really fraying type stuff, which is fun. And I love that for this very purpose because the threads come out so easily at first. You have to pull a few out to get them out of the way so that they don't easily come apart. But you can see I already have another one loose here on the ends. So I will show you what we do and how we handle that afterwards. This time of year, it is very staticky in New Brunswick. I keep saying Manitoba. It's very staticky in New Brunswick because of the winter weather, and so this stuff sticks to my fingers. I guess any little dry things you have on your hands, it catches on there too. But it's still fun to work with, and still the results are pretty awesome. So I was playing around before you got here, and, I have this other gold sheen ribbon. Not my favorite, but I will use it and show you this one in the end. And I did have an offcut from the lace that I will now use again for something else to make another flower. And then I also brought to the table, and I'm sure you've seen these bags or you've seen ribbon like this at the thrift shops. And, they come out after Christmas because after Christmas, everybody takes the bows they made. They chuck them all in a great big bag, and then you see bags of these at the thrift shops. And I'm sure you've passed it up saying, oh, what am I going to do with these pieces of ribbon? But this is really nice stuff to work with. Really exceptionally nice. So we're going to play with those today as well. So we're just doing a simple gathering flower today. So needle and thread is something that you need. I have one ready to go. I actually have 3 ready because when I sit down to make flowers, I like to have lots of thread so I don't have to keep sitting there and threading needles. I just take one and go to the next and to the next. You're not doing a lot of sewing. We're going to do some gathering only. We are going to have a video where you do have to do either some pre-sewing or, you know, after you watch the video, you can go and sew. But there again, it's very minimal, but you may want a sewing machine for that project. If you don't, you can hand sew it, but you know, phone a friend, get them to do the little stitching for you if you don't have a machine. It's not intense, so anybody can pre-do it for you. So I have a piece of velvet here. Now this does tear well, and where's the end of it? Here we go. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it about 2 inches. I'm going to cut into it first, and then I'm going to tear it. Now this does make a mess of these little yellow fibers, so I'm just going to do it off on the floor here so I can vacuum after. Whew. So this piece now, I'm going to cut one. When you're working with 2-inch or, you know, 3-inch, you have to allow for more. So in this case, it's about 2 inches. It actually might be a little bit bigger than that. Oh no, not much. 2 1/4. And in this case, I'm gonna cut it 18 inches long. So you can use your scrap fabrics. You know, maybe you've got some leftover quilting materials. You know, those fat quarters. If you've got some pieces that you can cut into strips, some old bed sheets, then this is the perfect stuff to use to cut up to make flowers. And as I said, there's lots of threads that come out of these things. And I see there's a little bit of a rough edge here. I'm going to cut this off, but I don't discard it because I will use this in my clusters coming up. So let's just check the other end. So yeah, it's approximately 18 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, when I start these, I don't start gathering from the end. I have my thread. It's fairly long, but it's going to gather up, so you really don't need that much thread. But I have doubled it and knotted it at the end. And I'm going to start, you know, maybe about 2 inches in, close to the edge. And I'm just going to do an in-out slip gathering stitch, like a running stitch. I used to call this my Friday night special stitch. Because when I was a kid, now I'm pulling it through because there's only so much you can put on the needle. And I'm leaving, even though it's knotted, I'm leaving a little bit of a tail here. The only reason I put a knot in here is so that if I do get to needle happy here, I don't want it to pull right through. So I'm just leaving it hanging, okay? But yeah, I used to call this my Saturday night special, because if I bought a new pair of jeans or, you know, a new pair of pants or something that needed hemming, this was the kind of hemming I would do. And probably most likely in black thread. And my mother would say, that's not going to last the wash. And, you know, it looks pretty, you can see the threads. And I had something to the effect of, yeah, well, I only need it for tonight. And nobody's going to be looking at the bottom of my pants unless they're too long. So out the door I would go with my Saturday night special pants on. And this is the kind of sewing I did, if I even did this much. When I got introduced to masking tape and duct tape, that worked even better. I was not into sewing. And then, you know, once I had done that, my mother would say to me, is that where you want them? And then she would hem them, because I was not into doing the proper sewing. I would have just have to re-hem them with this method each time instead of doing a proper hem. But she would do it for me. But Anyway, as you get close to the end here, we're going to stop before the end, about an inch before the end. Okay, so I'm at the other end here. So now I'm going to grab this end and I'm just going to overlap it slightly. I don't want to fold it in like this because then that adds extra bulk into your flower. So I'm just laying it over top about a 1/2 inch or so, maybe a little bit more, and lined up with the other fabric as close as you can, because I don't always cut these things perfectly and I don't worry about that. So I've got it overlapped a little bit and I've still got my needle here, and now I'm going to run through the 2 layers back and forth the same way, and now it's holding it in place, and I'm going to continue until I get to the end of where my knot was, my original knot here. I hope you can see that. And so I'm just going to keep going here. And I'm pulling the needle through. Now, the reason you don't want to start and end on the top here is that, it's just easier, and it's easier to finish the edges of this by gluing them together afterwards. And you don't have all that bulk, and you don't have your knots at the same time all in one place. So you could start it in the middle if you wanted and worked your way around, and then did the same thing when you got to the ends. You would just put them together and then keep going. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to see this. I'm just going to lay it down on the table here, and taking my 2 ends, I don't really want to pull on this knotted one anymore unless I really have to, because it's kind of a waste of thread. So I'm just going to pull on this one thread, and it's going to look like a hot mess as I'm doing it, but that's okay. And pulling it nice and tight. Now I'm going to get this felt out of the way. Some people like to leave a hole in the center. I don't. I like it nice and tight. So I will pull this as much as I can. And it doesn't look like much right now. So now I've got the 2 ends, and I'm going to tie it in a knot. And then a double knot. And then one more for good luck. Okay, and you don't have to keep your ends long. If you know what you're doing right away and you want to keep your needle on the flower, you can, but I usually like to wait until I see how I'm going to put it together and with what and stuff. So I'm just right now giving you some basic ideas. So then I start to flatten this out or stretch it out a little bit so that it looks like a flower. It kind of does, right? Well, it still looks like a ruffled mess. And then I have those 2 ends that we overlapped. So if you can see, they're right here. And I'm just going to take my glue gun. And I'm just going to run a little bit of glue down the edge here, just a tiny bit. Now, if this were lace or organza or something that was a little bit more see-through, you may want to use your white glue after the fact, after the flower is all put together. So again, just fluffing it out and pulling it so that it looks a little bit more like a flower. So I can leave it like that and watch what happens. Just putting that in the center. This one's a little bit small for this flower, but it looks quite pretty. So all I'd have to do is hot glue this into the center, and we're good to go. But we're not ready yet. So let's make another flower. Let's make one of these raggy things. Now, this one is a little bit thinner. It's more about 1.5 inches. So I think I'll go maybe about, I think about 14 inches. I'm gonna cut it. It's not, if you have too much, you can always cut it off. But if you don't have enough, then there's some other things to do, and I'm going to show you that after. So now that I've cut it, and you can see that it's frayed on both sides. It doesn't have to be, but the fraying will add a really nice effect on a flower. So I'm going to pull this one last loose thread that's sticking out on this side, and hope it doesn't cause any more to come out. And I am keeping these threads, and I'll show you that after. And so now I'm going to pull the rest of these out that are coming out. Hopefully I can get these out. If not, I can just cut them off there. Okay, stuck to my fingers. I'm going to get this one out of the way. And so it's not the nicest piece of material. Like I said, it kind of pulled and gathered a little bit when I was tearing it, but it's still fine for making a flower. And it's a little bit hairy on both sides, which will have a really nice effect on this when we're done. So the same thing, I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to start just a couple inches in, and I'm just going to start going in and out, doing my gathering stitch, and this won't take as long. And there is no, now I'm leaving a little bit of a tail here so that we can knot it afterwards. Or gather it up afterwards. There is no real length that you can say. I guess I kind of go with, if it's an inch, I might go 6 to 8 inches long. If it's an inch and a half, I might go 10 to 15 inches, depending on the fabric. You know, if it starts getting where the fabric is 2 inches wide, then I go to 16, 18 inches. So it's just kind of playing around. And you know, I would do a few flowers and make some notes for yourself as to where you, or what lengths to cut things. But I'm trying to show you that, you know, there's so many different fabrics and pieces that you have in your stash that you can turn into flowers. And if these are the colors you're already working with for your projects, then why not enhance them further by making matching flowers? So again, I've come to, you know, I'm about 2 inches away from the other end. So there's really no real rhyme or reason as to what length. I'm just going to lay this one now on top of it to make a circle, just overlapping about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And so you can see where my other knot is, right? Where I started. And then taking my needle, I'm just going to go in and out, catching both layers. So it's like making a sleeve, like your whole arm can go inside of it. Does that make sense? Until I get close to my knot there. And I have the 2 threads. So now just laying it down, I'm going to start to gather, but I'm gathering the one at the needle because that'll give me more thread still on the needle that I can use. As much as possible, I like to gather the needle side, not the knot side. But sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to go back and take a little bit on the knot side because you are pulling the threads and it's getting tight. So now I'm going to grab the knot side, tie the 2 together, and it always looks ugly. It always does. So don't think you're doing it wrong. Just tie it in a knot. Nice and tight. Still looks ugly. and then do a second knot. And one for good luck. You can also use crochet cotton. Now I'm going to trim these 2 threads. You can also use crochet cotton to make your flowers because it's nice and thick. The only thing is that thickness will also be noticeable in your flower fabrics as you do it. So now I'm just kind of maneuvering it so that it looks a little bit more flat. I probably could have used a little less fabric in this case. So I'm just pulling it a little bit and maneuvering. But I do like it to be puffy. So it's not out of this world for me to leave it as it is. But I've got some frayed edges there. Now you can still see my little yellow threads in the center. Normally when I'm doing this, I would cut threads that are a little bit more complementary to what I'm working with, so I don't run into a situation where they're showing. I'm just going to trim that down. And so this is a perfect example. I could have trimmed those little hairs that were on the one side, because they are on both sides. I've frayed it from both sides, right? I could have trimmed them away on this side, but then you risk these fray threads coming off, which is what's happened here. So when you have a little bit of length, it does kind of prevent them from coming off. And also you can always trim them after, but how convenient with this red flower that it had black cross threads, and it almost makes it look like a poppy, right? So first I want to find those 2 ends. Sometimes I make them so tight you can't even find them. Yeah, I can't even find it in here. It's tucked in there somewhere. So again, I could leave it like this with a little flower in the center. Isn't that gorgeous? But what if I took this flower and added this on top and then this? Wow, right? Now, if you can imagine this on a book cover, wouldn't that just be gorgeous? But, you know, we're only getting started. So, I'm going to take that little gem back. And let's work with some gold netting. Now, netting is a little harder, or tulle is a little harder to work with because of all the holes, right? So, you just got to hope that you can gather it up pretty good. So this was about 1.5 inches, and this is about 2 inches. So what happens is when you put your flower together, 1.5 inches, this is probably about 3 inches. Yeah, it's pretty close to 3 inches in diameter. And this one was about 2.25, so it's closer to 5 inches now. Yeah, it's almost 5 inches across with this flower. I think maybe it was more like 2.5. But, you know, it depends on what size you want in the end. So the smaller the width of your mesh, not only do you need less, but it will make a smaller flower. So I'm going to go about 1.75 inches wide because I want to make this gold go in between these two. So there are 2 things that I could do with this. So 1.75 inches, I'm just going to cut off a piece, and I'm going to make it about 12 inches, I think. No, maybe about 14 inches, I think. Sorry, I'm a little bit wishy-washy in that. And I'm not going to make it as wide as the yellow one. And I'm going to do the same thing. Do I have enough thread on my needle? Not really. Need a new one. Okay, so it's not as wide. I didn't measure, but I know it's not as wide as the yellow velvet. But I do have threads here hanging out like crazy. Whew. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to just start about a couple inches in, and because, like I said, there's so many holes, if I pull this thread too hard, even with a knot, it's going to run away on me. So I'm just going to have to watch. And I know you can't really see my needle. I can't see my needle either. I can't find it. But this is fast, so you just have to bear with me or fast forward if you really can't handle this. And just in and out. Till you get close to the other end. The one good thing about this stuff is that it is so thin that you can do the whole thing on your needle at one time. So I'm just going to pull that out so I don't have too much, but leaving my knot towards the end. And I know you can't see it. I should have probably had an orange thread or something. And then the same thing, I'm going to take the original starting point, match it up with this level, or the second side of it, the other half of it. And then taking my needle, there's my thread, I'm just going to go back and forth, catching both layers at the same time. And usually when I'm going across the two layers, I kind of take smaller stitches so that I get more stitches in there to catch them both. And now, I know you can't see it, but there's the other thread. And then doing the same thing, if I can find my two ends. I'm going to just pull the thread, holding on to the other one, nice and tight. And then double knot. And then one more time. So I know you really couldn't see this with the yellow thread on the yellow or on the gold. So again, I could just leave it like this and put in the center. I wouldn't even bother trying to glue these two together because, you know, you could get burnt with it, but I might tack it down with a little bit of white glue afterwards. So you could leave it like this and just put in a cute little center. And there is a pretty little flower, right? Made with like pennies. Or you could get a little fancier and you could add this into the top. Still a pretty flower, just like that. It looks like poppy with this black in here, doesn't it? So just a little bit of gold behind this thing, and then a gem in the center. And wow, right? Can you see that? But then if you take it one more step further and add this on the background, now you've got a flower. You've got a gorgeous flower. And once you've decide and make the commitment, but I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to commit. Once you decide and you make the commitment, it's a matter of holding them together. I would not glue them because then you're going to have that hard glue center. And then you also risk getting burnt, and you also risk that it doesn't catch. I would take all three in hand and with a needle and thread, just tack it a few times back and forth, going through, you know, up and down, just like you would sew on a button, and then tack it and squish it down as you do. And what happens is you get a nice tight and deep sort of a center by stitching it all together and pushing it down, and then it really makes your little center gem look really sharp. Now I'm just holding it in place, but you can see, right? So I'm still not quite ready to commit to this being the flower. Now, another alternative to adding that pop of gold within your piece, I'm going to put these aside. And I'm going to cut a circle. And the circle is going to be about, now if this is about 5 inches, I'm going to make about a 4-inch circle. So I've got 2 layers here. So I'm going to cut about 4 by 4 square. And it's not perfect. I mean, I could measure by folding it in half, but I'm just winging it. I'm not giving it too much thought. And I'm doing 2 layers. So you can see I have one and then the second layer. And I'm going to, it's on a fold, so I'm going to open up that fold by taking my scissors and getting inside here, cutting it open. So I have 2 sort of squares, right? Nothing fancy. And I'm just going to fold it into a taco. Does that sound right? Or, you know, corner to corner. And then I'm going to fold it again. And one more time. And I'm just going to round corner it, sort of. And yes, I keep all these bits because when it comes to making clusters, you'd be surprised. And then you open it up and you've got that circle, 2 circles. Now, you can add that on top. It doesn't take as much bulk because you haven't gathered it all up. And you can still take that same flower in the center and create that look as well. But it looks like a circle, you know, which is fine for some things. You could use this with doilies, with pieces of lace, not just tulle. So instead of a circle, perfect circle, I'm going to fold this up again as tight as I can. One more time. So I've got that point there, but I'm going to round corner this to make it look more like a petal shape. So when you open it up, it's got petals now. Can you see that? Probably not that good. So let's put it on here. So now you should be able to see the petals. And now I'm going to put my flower in the center. So that's 2 completely different look, and it looks like another layer of the flower. And you can also do that with the velvet if you want. But I like the velvet background for stability. I like that it holds all of this together. Drop your little gem in the center, and you've got a beautiful little flower. Just like that, with all these little black little threads sticking up, although I see another thread that's come out. Now, maybe, you know, your red is not what you want, or maybe this is too much for you as well. All those threads that I pulled out, I'm going to put this one aside. I have them all here in a pile. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of them. And I use this for all kinds of things. I use this for clusters. I'm just going to make like a little pile of them together. No rhyme or reason as to how I'm doing this. And I'm just going to tie a knot in the whole pile that I have there. So there will be a few loose ones that come out, but there's also going to be some that stay together because they're knotted. And I make this scruffy looking mess. And then where I've looped it and I've got those round loops, I'm going to just cut it. And same with this end, I'm just going to cut it. And yeah, you're going to lose a few pieces here and there. But you've got this scruffy mess that you can now put in the center. It's almost like a stamen. You can cut them shorter, you can leave them long. Yeah, sorry, it stuck to my fingers because of the static and stuff in my fingers. Okay. Now you can still stitch. Oh, this stuff is crazy. You can still stitch this in. I like to kind of just open it up a little bit more, and then taking one of your stones in the center. But everything's so staticky right now. And it becomes almost like, you know, like a stamen from a flower. And that's only using 2 layers. And you can add more. I'm just showing you with a little bit here. And like I said, my fingers, it's stuck to my fingers. So again, not ready to commit to this, but it's another possibility. So this is done with the flat piece. Oy, this stuff is making me crazy. I do other things with that stuff, so it will go in my jar. So this is done with a flat piece, and instead of being round-ish, I've cut it into petals. So now I want to play with this wired ribbon. Let's see. I thought I had a piece of red here somewhere in my pile. Yes, I do. So here I'm going to cut about a 12-inch piece. Let's see. No, about 14 inches because it's about 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to cut a 14-inch piece. And it's wired. Now, with wired ribbon, I always line, if it's got on an angle like this, I do make it straight. Now, because it's got a wire, there's 2 wires. There's one on this side and one on this side, so that when you want to shape it, it'll stay in that shape. But we're going to just cut off the 1 wire and this gold cording, so it doesn't look so nasty Christmassy, right? Because you want to make these flowers for year-round. You don't want to just make them for Christmas. Although you could leave it on there. It will give some nice shape if you are using this wired edge. And no, I do not throw this out. This has lots of potential as well, including for stamen or making flowers or bows. Like, there's still a lot of option to use this in something else. So I don't throw it out. I've also used it in snippets and in snippet rolls. So yeah, I don't, this goes in my stash, and I eventually use it up. Now, because there's a wire in here, I could just grab one end of the wire on this side and one end of the wire on the other side and pull them to gather it up. The only thing is that because of the wire, you get a lot of bulk in here. So I'm going to show you and do it. Just by pulling all this nice and tight. So you can't quite get a tight circle, but it's not to say that this wouldn't be a nice little accent in between layers. If you were doing a layered flower. So coming back to this one, you could use it the same way you're using the gold by adding it in here, or let's put the gold underneath so you can see, adding it into here and then putting another flower on top. So it just gives you a little bit more shimmer. Isn't that cute? I never get tired of making these. And like, look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? And because it's a stiffer ribbon and it has the wire in it, that just poofs it up a little bit more to sort of cup this flower into the center. So again, not ready to commit, but just showing you some possibilities. The other alternative would be to take the wire out altogether, and I do have one made here. Yeah, it's not the same. I'll show you that one after. To take the wire out altogether and then gather it up manually, and then you won't have all this bulk. So then you'll be left with a flower that's more like the ones we've done, like this little red fabric one. So it's just a matter of playing until you see things that you like and using it that way. And then I have another one. This is beautiful ribbon. I think it's a Christmas ribbon, but you know, the gold on the edge makes it a little bit nasty for this time of year and for non-Christmas. But this is also 2.5 inches wide, so I'm going to cut. Well, it won't be 2.5 inches wide. It'll be about 2 inches when I cut off the gold. So I'm going to make it about 18 inches. So now you're going to look at this wired edge ribbon a little bit differently in the future. Okay, these threads are making me absolutely bonkers. Okay, I'll just stick it in here just to get it out of my way because they keep catching on everything I'm doing. I do use this for a lot of stuff, and one of these days I will show you what I do with that. Okay, so I've cut this wired edge ribbon. It was cut on an angle as well. And these were actually all made into bows, and I took them apart. And you would not believe the yardage of fun stuff that you get. Like, look at this shimmery kind of tulle-like gold one. This is a really beautiful mesh that once you take that wire, this will make a very shimmery flower base or anything. And then I have this green one. This green one I could use to make leaves, or even just sort of a kind of a bow type leaf, or, you know, playing around to make it into leaves, but that's another day. We're not doing that today. So just taking my scissors, I'm going to now cut off this nasty gold stuff. It's got the wire in it, so I'm just leaving the wire. So I will put that aside, and this can be trim on a cluster, on a little snippet. And now trimming the other side. Okay, sorry for the moment of silence, but I'm one of those that doesn't walk and chew gum well. Okay, so I have a straight piece of ribbon now that I can gather up, and wherever my needle went, here is the short one. Okay, there is another one on the table here. Is it long enough? Yeah. Sorry, I missed it. Okay, exact same method. Starting a couple inches from the edge, or from the end, and running along the edge. And leaving a couple of inches on the edge of my thread here with the knot in it. And that's the thing, is these flowers, you know, it might be painful to watch, but they're pretty fast to make, really. So it's not that intense. Of a project. Now, the only thing about this sparkly ribbon is you have to be prepared. There's going to be glitter because this stuff is covered in that glitter and the glitter comes off, but the results are, you know, so worth it. My husband is so used to glitter everywhere that he doesn't even say anything anymore. He might ask me, "Oh, did you make some flowers or something today? Why have we got glitter?" But otherwise, he doesn't care. He knows it's everywhere. I say glitter isn't over until summer. And then we start getting ready for Christmas anyway, so the glitter is back. I don't know why people don't like glitter. There's nothing wrong with it. It adds a little sparkle into our lives, right? But some people just don't like it. Okay, so now I'm just a little ways from the end here. So I'm going to grab this one, overlap them. And it doesn't matter if you overlap from the top or the bottom. I just overlap them and then try to make sure I do a couple of smaller stitches so that I catch it all. And then keep going till I get to my starting thread. Okay, so I hope you've been able to see all this as I do it. Now, I'm running to the end of my thread, so I'm not really going to worry too much about which one is longer or shorter. So this was about 18 inches in length. I seem to work about 18, 14, and then smaller. And I guess I should do a smaller one too to show you. All right, once I've got it knotted, then I can knot it again. And one more time. I always knot 3 times. And there it is. Now I'm going to put it under this music sheet so you can see it a little bit better. Like, look how pretty that is. And that was that nasty gold Christmas ribbon. But now you've got this pretty mauve and green flower. And I could maybe add a gold center, not a... Do I have one cut out? Yes, I do. A little gold one. Oh, look at that. Isn't that adorable? One little dot of glue and you've got an instant flower. But, you know, we could add some gold underneath it to give it a little bit more pop. You could have lace under here. You can have tulle, whatever you have. And, you know, we could even go as far as using this same velvet. And look at this. Isn't that pretty? So you can keep layering and layering and layering constantly. Just gorgeous. Not ready yet. Did I make a smaller one? Well, I'll show you a smaller one. So, mustard, gold, floral, then this, and then a center in it. That could work too. So you see, the more layers, the more it gives you that stiffer, cuppy type look to it. So you can really make some beautiful flowers. These flowers would be nice for fascinators. They'd be nice to make a fancy brooch if you're going somewhere. You know, journal cover. For little girls, you know, maybe not as intense, but for little girls' headband, because there's no wires in this, it's fairly soft. You can stitch it right onto a headband, and it's not going to hurt your little girl wearing it, you know, on her head. So lots of possibilities. So the only other thing that I really wanted to show you was this lace. Now, I want to show you making it where it's not, I'm trying to think of what I'm saying here. Supposing I cut this by mistake and I only made it 12 inches. so that I've made it too short. So you would expect to get a 4-inch flower, 4-inch wide flower out of this because it's been cut, or because it's 2 inches wide. Need another thread. So I'm just going to gather it up on this side. Leaving myself a little bit of a thread. So I could go on and play with this like for hours on end, making these little individual sections of flowers and then gluing them, or not gluing them, stitching them together. Okay, I get close to the end. And we're going to overlap this. See where my thread is? It's hanging out over there. And then doing a couple of extra little stitches in here where the overlap is to make sure that it's holding in place. And catching up to my other thread. So now I'm going to gather this up. Fairly tight. And knotting it 3 times. Okay, so you can, I just have to glue that afterwards, but you can see that it's taking on this bowl effect. It's not laying flat, and that's because you don't have enough length for the width of the flower. So you, when you're cutting your laces, or your fabrics, the longer the wider the lace, the longer you need to cut it. So that's why I say I usually do about 18 inches, not 12 for about a 2 to 2.5 inch size of flower. So there are 2 methods to fix this. Okay. You can either undo the thread and cut a new length, and then you can cut this in half, and then do the 2 halves separately, or you can put it all together like this into a little cup end, and then I just take my scissors and I trim. So now this is not out of line for a little flower. Again, you could take it and glue a center in like that, and it's just a little instant little flower. And you still have this piece. Oh, I'm really getting picked here. You still have this piece to make another little one with the scallop on the other side, because this had was a double scallop lace. So you can recover by making 2 small ones, just cutting it in half. But usually for a large flower that's this wide, you need to have at least 18 inches, half a yard of fabric or trim, whatever you're using to make the flower. And again, to show you the possibilities of enhancing that one further, is this 1 layer? I think that's 1 layer. Yeah, I'm going to just cut a little round piece. Is that 1 layer? Feels weird. So let's Yeah, it is one layer. Seems like so big. And then you open it up and you can use that to add into the back of this just to give it a little bit more of a color pop. Or you can again take it and fold it up and make flower petals. So just folding it back into the circle, into folds and folds and folds as tight as you can make it. This is pretty, I'm using two though, so I should maybe just use one at a time. So I'm going to fold that, fold it in half. And you can do it while it's square too. It's just that I'm showing you both options. And nice and tight. And then you open it up and you have a little flower. So if you add this to the back, you have this pretty little flower with a netting behind it. And, you know, you can keep going. You can add more layers, all different kinds of things. So like I said, I am not ready to commit to anything, but I will show you some of the different ones that we did today. You know, this is just how they're sitting. You know, it can be half the layers. This could get added onto here. So you can really see the red a little bit more underneath the red tulle. You know, I've got this shabby red flower here. And I have some more different pieces here. So you can start, this was another piece of Christmas ribbon, and here is that lace done in the full length, and this one was 18 inches long. And so yeah, it's just having fun and making more and making more and making more. And I did commit to this one. This is already glued, or not glued, stitched, and then the center is glued into it. But if you have all of these sitting in a little, you know, a little plastic tub, or, you know, a little baggie somewhere, and when you are sitting and ready to make some pieces, you've got everything you need. And it's all cut out. You just have to decide and commit and sew them all together. So that is the fun part of this, and anything goes as far as you can have other centers, and you can use those triple ones that I had used before. Here's a little piece of yellow. It was just a thin little strip that I did up. So in no time at all, you can have this beautiful collection of flowers to add on your journals. So I hope you got something out of this, and that you can see how pretty these are and how they can be intermixed and matched. I still have this one. I haven't cut those ones out yet, but this could go in the center there as well. So that was an oval one. And once they're all pushed down further into the center of the flower, they just look beautiful when they're put together. So there you go. Just like that, I have this beautiful collection, and it will sit loose because these are all gems that match it. They will go in a bag in the container. And so that when I really want a flower and I'm working in these colors, I know I can go and grab these flowers, and I have everything I need to put them together. It doesn't matter what kind I want. This one is already together, so it's a keeper, but the rest of it I can mix and match how I want. So that's it for this week's video. So next week, we're going to be making some new centers, some different centers. I want to say bring some beads, but I really want you to see. So it's one of those things that you'll just have to wait until next week and see what I do, and then go gathering. And it's stuff that you have already. So yeah, this is one type of flower, and then next week we're going to be making new centers. So they will be centers that you can also use for this, but you could use them for another project. And then the week after will be the other project, the next project. But we have a whole lineup. Trust me on this one. It only gets better and more beautiful from here. And yeah, you're going to have a bucket of flowers in no time at all. And then you just have to decide how to commit. So that's it. That's all for my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow is Happy Mail. Oh my goodness. On Monday, I took 4 envelopes to the mail, got 4 more and a box. So I'm excited to open all that for you and to share that with you tomorrow. And it's very cold here. It's still nippy and there is snow on the ground. Not a lot. I don't think it's going to last very long. But yeah, it's a little bit nippy. So, and the ice, that's the thing. I wasn't able to go on Sunday again to go thrifting. And then I was thinking I was going to go yesterday and meet up with Jennifer Dirtle and Deborah Abram, and that didn't work either. So I have to wait until the weather warms up a little bit more before I can start venturing out and traveling to all these different places. So tomorrow is Happy Mail. Thursday, I don't know if there will be a Thrifty Thursday. I do have a few things, but we will wait and see. But I will keep you posted with that for tomorrow. Have yourself a very creative day. Talk to you soon. Bye now.